Welcome to the Coaster101 podcast. I'm Eric Woolley, joined again this week by Andrew Stillwell. Hi, Andrew.
Hey, Eric. How are you?
Good. And Shane Joseph. Hi, Shane. How's it going?
Hey, everyone. What's going on?
This week, we are going to be talking about Defunct roller coasters. Sadly, as we all know, for lots of reasons, roller coasters get taken down. I think there's even an article on the website that Nick wrote about reasons roller coasters get taken down. It could be the park is struggling financially, could be the park is space limited, needs to replace an older, less popular coaster, it could be roller coasters that are hard to maintain or can't be maintained. Sometimes rides just are bad, and parks take them out after getting negative reviews for a few years. So we wanted to talk about some defunct coasters that we rode and were some of our favorites, as well as ones that we never got to ride but wish we could have, and ones that we do not miss at all, or maybe got replaced by something that we think is better. This all relates to a question we got on Twitter to try and, as sort of an intro to this, Twitter user @ChrisP asked us, what do we really think about Green Lantern at Six Flags Magic Mountain?
It's going to Laurent. We're never going to hear about it. That's it. That's it. The end.
You, Shane, Andrew, neither of you have rode on Green Lantern,
No,
right?
No. I saw the patch of dirt where it used to be, but that was it.
Yes. It was certainly a ride that was criticized heavily for being incredibly rough, which it was. I think I don't know if I found it as painful as lots of people described it. Like, I never came away from it feeling like I actually had an injury, but definitely after riding it a couple times when going to Magic Mountain, the last however many years, I never rode it when I was at Magic Mountain. And it was one of those things that was never really worth riding. There's a very good article on the website. If you search for, like, why Batman is going to be better than Green Lantern, that explains why the newer free spins are much better than these old Zack spin rides. Basically, it has to do with where the center of rotation is on them that makes the new ones much less painful. But safe to say,
those things look like a capacity nightmare too. Yeah,
that was a good reason to not ride it when it was very uncomfortable. Was why would I wait in line for this when I can go ride Batman or Riddler's Revenge or something? So yeah, not a great ride. Not going to miss it. I guess we'll see how it does at Laurent. Maybe it will be more successful there.
How will you know? How will you find out?
Andrew, it sounds like we need to visit Laurent, is what you're saying. And can get all of you guys on whatever it's going to be called when it opens there.
If you're listening on this podcast and can name any coasters at Laurent without looking at RCDB, please tweet us at Coaster101.
Fair enough. We do not reach the French language audience, possibly. So now, talking about so that was a roller coaster, I think, where I am not sad is gone. Let's talk about some of our favorite defunct coasters. Maybe, Shane, let's start with you. What are some of your favorite coasters that, sadly, you can no longer ride?
Well, I think the most popular one for me, and I think most no pun intended, most universally missed by a lot of people, is Dueling Dragons, or as it was later called, Dragon Challenge at the Harry Potter makeover, but it didn't duel then, so Dueling Dragons, I think, is the more missed. Two dueling B&M inverts right on top of each other. I mean, what's not to like about that? And I think even when they were open, they were considered two of the better B&M inverts. I'm trying to think back to when I went in 2013. I'm almost positive that I got to ride both sides. And I really liked them both. They were very intense. And even when they weren't dueling in the Harry Potter years, which is when I got to experience it, it was still cool because you're kind of winding in and out of the track and you can still see the other train. It might not be dueling with you, but the two layouts are side by side and they're mirrored at some points and going in and out, and it was just a really cool experience. And the Harry Potter theming, even though it didn't duel anymore, the theming was a really cool part of it. That queue, I remember being really fun to walk through. And just overall, I think that's a ride experience that it's a shame that the park doesn't have something like that anymore, and probably just because of the way these resort parks are going in terms of theming, probably won't really have anything like that again.
As someone who experienced it as Dueling Dragons, I grew up in Florida, so we went to Universal, a fair amount. The dueling aspect was really cool. I know they had the technology in the station where they could actually stop or slow down one train on the lift hill, and they could sync up. So you would have those. I believe there was 3 near miss points when the coasters did duel. There were the loops, there were an interlocking corkscrew, and then there was one other moment that I can't think of right now. And there was a spot in the exit where you could see all 3, and it made for a really cool photo. But the theming, the pre-Harry Potter theming, and the giant fire dragon, the giant ice dragon outside. If you've never seen those, have no idea what I'm talking about, definitely Google that. Just Google Dueling Dragons coaster entrance, and you'll see it. It was super impressive to see in person, and it set the stage very well for what was, again, 2 very fantastic coasters that are no longer with us.
Sadly, one that I never got to ride, but it's very high on the list of defunct coasters I wish I could have ridden. Shane, are there others that were on your list that you wish that you missed, you wish you could still ride?
Yeah, if we want to get into RMC territory, Cyclone at Six Flags New England was one of my favorite wooden coasters. Obviously, I'm super grateful, and I like Wicked Cyclone better. I love having an RMC in my home park, but there was something that I really liked about Cyclone. It was one of my first kind of bigger, quote-unquote, roller coasters. So that was kind of special to me personally, but in general, I think that was just a really fun layout and a great location. You could see it from the road when you're driving in. So that was one that I do miss, even though I like the replacement better. That's definitely an experience I'm going to miss having when I go to the park. And also the bobsled coaster at Efteling in the Netherlands. I've actually been on 2 bobsled coasters, one at the Great Escape, and then this one at Efteling, which I think was just called Bob or Bobsled. And it was a lot of fun. I've always kind of liked the bobsled coasters. They offer something really different, obviously, than a lot of other coasters, and this one I just remember being really well incorporated into the nature around it and had some fun theming, like everything at that park. So those are the other 2 that I think I will really miss having those around.
Yeah, I think it'd be nice if there were more bobsled coasters around, based on all of the ones that I have ridden have been very fun. Andrew, what are some of your great long lost coaster loves?
Like Shane said, Dueling Dragons, it is very high up there for me. I have ridden Hagrid. I enjoyed my 2 rides on Hagrid. I had a ride in the front and a ride in the back at night last fall. To compare them is very difficult for me, but I do miss Dueling Dragons. Well, I think we're going to touch on that here in a little bit. But some other ones that really come to mind, Thunder Road at Carowinds, the racing wooden coasters for a long time, and especially when I first moved to North Carolina and was visiting Carowinds in the end of the Paramount era. One side went forwards, the other side the train was reversed, and there was something special about being pulled over that first lift hill as you were sitting, what would be the front of the train if it were going forwards, but it's the back row, so you don't see where you're going. You get that kind of that gravity pull over the lift hill. Volcano at King's Dominion. Very sad to see it go when it was announced it would close last year. I know it was a somewhat of an unexpected closure, but with a coaster of its kind, which I believe was the first launched inverted full circuit coaster. Obviously, It went through a mountain that had been there forever, so there was not necessarily the most structurally sound. I'm sure it was 100% perfectly safe. Made sense for it to go, unfortunately, but that was a fantastic ride. The 30G rolls coming out of the volcano, kind of launching up into that inversion out of the volcano. Definitely gonna miss it. Excited for whatever quote-unquote expeditions are on the horizon that King's Dominion was advertising last year. I don't know, what those expeditions actually mean, but I think we would have found out had COVID not kept the park closed this year.
Yep.
Another Virginia park, Busch Gardens, Williamsburg. Obviously, I've got to go Big Bad Wolf, that Arrow suspended coaster. It had this amazing drop over the park's Rhine River, where you got almost, fully horizontal with those swinging cars. And one, I'm going to go with it. They're somewhat defunct. Some are defunct, fully defunct. But the coasters of Hard Rock Park, this is going to be I could talk for hours, and we're only like a 30 to 40 minute show, so this will be.
We discussed in our production meeting equivalent. I think at some point we'll have a full Hard Rock Park episode, since Andrew is a rare person who's been to both versions of Hard Rock Park.
Right. I went when it was Hard Rock, and I went when it was freestyle, and I think again there's dozens of us maybe who did that, but. Led Zeppelin the Ride / the Time Machine, pretty underrated B&M for, in my opinion. I believe it's operating now in Vietnam somewhere. It's got some crazy new name that's like a dragon, but it still has the Zeppelin station. It still has the Zeppelin trains. And another one that comes to mind is Maximum RPM, which is the Premier Rides Ferris wheel lift style coaster. It was the only one ever made. It only operated for those 2 seasons and was kind of sporadic. I think I might have been the only person ever to ride it as Maximum RPM and Roundabout, because it was open and closed so many times, and I happened to get lucky on both my visits there. But yeah, I could talk for hours about Hard Rock Park despite only visiting twice, but there was another topic for another day. Eric, what are some of your favorite defunct coasters?
Yeah, it's I have been very lucky that my home parks, there weren't a ton of rides there that are gone that I love. There are ones that left California's Great America, where I grew up, that are not there anymore, but they aren't ones that stuck in my mind as being amazing rides. I do miss the Schwarzkopf shuttle loop that I grew up with. Tidal Wave, eventually Grease Lightning. I think it then moved and was also Grease Lightning, and then I think became parts for the one in Kentucky Kingdom before it closed. I love those rides in general, so partly it's that I always feel like it took up so little space. The sort of footers for are still in the park. You can see them. That's like, man, did this really need to go away? I think I'm very lucky that Knott's Berry Farm still has Montezuma's Revenge, so I can still get my fix down there. That's my home park ride that I most miss. It would have been great also. I guess I never actually rode it, but the Whizzer at California's Great America, I love the Whizzer at Six Flags Great America. It'd be great if it was still in my home park. Others that sort of spring to mind that I had ridden were things like Colossus at Magic Mountain. Similar sort of to Shane, it was a fun racing wooden coaster, huge. Obviously, it was in lots of TV shows and stuff too. But I can't really complain and miss it too much because Twisted Colossus is maybe my favorite RMC. So let's sort of I think I've been very lucky that there haven't been too many of my favorite coasters from when I was a kid that I have missed. There are definitely lots that I wish I could have ridden that that I have not. So we can get into that a little bit. You guys mentioned ones that I certainly wish I could have ridden. Dueling Dragons, Volcano, Andrew. So the first time I went to King's Dominion was August 2018, when Volcano, I think, had not officially been closed yet, but it had not opened. Maybe it had opened at the beginning of the season and then closed at some point. And so I could see it And like before going, there was this like period was like, well, maybe they'll reopen it and get the part they need by the time I'm there. And sadly did not. And that seems like such a unique coaster that everyone who's ridden it loved so much. And a coaster that like, the park's probably not going to have like a giant mountain that coaster goes through ever again, right? That's
right.
Like Cedar Fair's been doing good with like adding theming to their roller coasters, but they haven't really done something like that in recent years, and I don't see that kind of happening ever again. So that
there's that one at Canada's Wonderland, but it's not the same.
Yes, Wonder Mountain Guardian. So those are two that are definitely high. Others that I wish I had been on, Hypersonic XLC, which I think we have maybe even talked about on the podcast before, that had this air-powered launch, 0 to 80 in 1.8 seconds, like the fastest launch, I think, on any coaster. It was only open for 6 years before closing, and a model that I wish kind of existed. There's the one in Japan that I always mispronounce the name of.
Doronpa.
Yeah, that one.
Something like that.
That is, I think, is the only of that kind of that air-powered launch. But it would have been fun to ride the one here in the United States. And then the other one that is kind of a like touches on not my local parks, but a park I go to a lot, Knott's Berry Farm. Similar in that it is a rare model, was Wacky Soapbox Racers at Knott's Berry Farm, which if you haven't heard of it, was one of 2 Aero steeplechase models. So 4 singular tube tracks lined up across from each other that race. And as far as I can tell from like watching things, it is very much a like race, and how heavy or light or aerodynamic your car is will make you win. So not like crazy fast or intense or anything, but a fun, unique model that now there's one. I think the one that's left is at Blackpool Pleasure Beach in the UK. Is still open, still running, but Wacky Soapbox Racers, which originally opened as Cycle Chase and had you riding on like saying on like a bicycle, and then it went to like a soapbox model. Closed in '96, and I wish I had a chance to ride it before it shut down. Andrew, what were some that you missed out on that you wish you could have ridden?
I want to go back for just a quick second to Hypersonic, and I know.
Oh yeah.
I don't want to jump ahead of you, Shane, but I know you listed that as one of the ones you wanted to ride. I actually did get to ride Hypersonic XLC
really?
in the one of the 6 years that it did operate. The launch was very.
If you tell me it sucked, I won't feel bad about it anymore.
The launch was very impressive. Obviously, I had never done anything like that was 0 to 80 so fast because of the air power launch. After the initial climb up the hill, you crest to the top of the hill pretty slowly, and then you went straight down, you came around a bank turn, and then you were back in the station. Very short ride. I know it was the prototype from SNS, like they built it in Utah, and then they disassembled it and reassembled it at King's Dominion. A lot of build-up for not a lot of payoff. I wouldn't say it was bad, but other than the launch, which you've experienced faster launches and gone faster on other coasters, you're not missing much, I promise. But
good to know. All right, I'll stick with Japan then.
Okay. So I'm gonna go with 2 roller coasters at Worlds of Fun as kind of defunct coasters I wish I could have ridden. Zambezi Zinger is a Schwarzkopf extended jumbo jet. Those are very fun rides. And talking to Chris Foshi, who's their PR guy, he was telling me that Zambezi Zinger kind of had this cult following at Worlds of Fun, and people are always clamoring for it to come back under a new name or things like that. So I would have loved to experience it. Those jumbo jet models aren't something you see a lot of anymore. Also at Worlds of Fun, Orient Express, which was an aero looper, and other than Loch Ness Monster, was the only roller coaster in the world to have interlocking loops. And while Loch Ness Monster kind of lives on today, Orient Express closed in the, I believe, early 2000s, mid to early 2000s. And I'm not the biggest fan of an aerodynamics coaster. To use a Shane phrase, they're kind of janky. They're rough. They'll beat you up. But I think seeing that coaster with its interlocking loops, and RCDB says it's the first coaster with a cutback element, it would have been cool to experience. Two other ones that I want to talk about. They're both named Hurricane. They're in different locations. And they actually both would have turned 20 this year had they not closed already. But the Hurricane at the Pavilion in Myrtle Beach, it was a CCI coaster. Only lasted 7 years before it was taken down. There's a 20 for 20 or 20 in 2020 that feature on the site that I wrote about it. Would have been very cool to experience. For a while, there was some competition between Family Kingdom in Myrtle Beach and the Pavilion. The Pavilion closed, became real estate, and now what's on that land is like a zipline place, and they hold a music festival there. So, not really the...
So they lost the competition, it sounds like.
Yeah, they did. Or the developers won because they got the money for the real estate. So it's...
Also, yeah.
And then the other hurricane was the Dania Beach Hurricane down in South Florida. I believe was at a Boomers Family Entertainment Center. Kind of odd for this, from all accounts, really good wooden roller coaster to be at just this FEC in Miami somewhere. And I know Mike wrote a really good article about his experience with Dania Beach Hurricane. That's one, growing up in Florida, I never really knew about because I didn't really get the coaster bug until I moved from Florida. So it was, I never really knew about it, never got the chance to ride it, and unfortunately it was standing but not operating for several years before they bulldozed it recently. And then one other one is Twisted Twins at Kentucky Kingdom.
Sure, yeah.
Everything they've ever said about that ride, those two racing wooden coasters, it would have been fun to experience. But having experienced Storm Chaser with its barrel roll drop, I'll give the nod to Storm Chaser there.
Yeah. So, listeners, if you go to the website and search for Hurricane, you can find some more about some of Andrew's coasters that he wishes he could have ridden. Which, yeah, I mean, from reading your piece about the one at Myrtle Beach, it sounded like it would have been a fun coaster to get to check out. Shane, what about you? What were some that closed on you that you wish you could have ridden?
Well, I think the stereotypical answer is Son of Beast. Even though it's stocked, everybody who I've ridden has said it's not worth it. However, I think that loop is just cool. I would have loved to do that loop. And the loop on a wooden coaster is just, RMC does it, but nothing like that vertical loop. I think eventually RMC will pull that off, but not quite yet. So that's, even that one element, that's all I wanted to do. The rest of the ride, I can take it or leave it. But that one element, I would have liked to experience. Volcano, both of you guys, I think, mentioned. So I'll just say that, too. After I got off my first Intimate Impulse coaster, that was the first thing I thought of is, man, I wish I could have ridden Volcano, because the launch alone was just so cool. So I can't imagine a full layout of that. Gwazi at Busch Gardens Tampa. Also, I love Lightning Racer at Hershey Park. So I'm all for the racing wooden coasters. I really would have liked to experience that, even though, again, RMC or Iron Gwazi is certainly going to be a world-class ride. Dueling wooden coasters are also just a blast to ride.
Yeah.
It's not a roller coaster. I don't know if either of you did this, actually. The Jaws ride at Universal Studios Florida, that's one of the rides that I think about all the time, thinking I wish I could have gone on that. It's just a really unique experience. Have either of you gotten to do that?
I can still recite most of the spiel from memory. So, yeah, I was a huge Jaws ride fan. I hated to see it go. The Harry Potter expansion in Universal Studios Florida is great. Jaws was great for what it is because it had the spieling, the skipper on the boat, and it had the iconic scenes with the shark going into the boat, and you were going in the boathouse. And again, this is another topic for another day, is me just waxing poetic about the Jaws ride.
Yeah, I think we might do a future episode about defunct dark rides that we miss, or Universal and Disney rides.
Okay, yeah, all right,
too,
we'll save
I could also
that
spend
one.
probably an hour talking about Back to the Future. I think Jaws is
yeah.
actually. I think it might still be at Universal Studios in Japan.
Yes, it's at one of the
think
international
They've
parks.
the Osaka Universal Studios seems to have preserved a bunch of the still have their versions of a bunch of rides that have closed in Florida. So that's the trick will be get there before they start replacing them with other things.
Yes.
I also have at Great Adventure the Batman and Robin the Chiller, which was that weird shuttle coaster, which is different than the other Batman and Robin rides. It was I think dueling shuttle coasters. One of them had the top hat, and one of them had the Cobra Roll, I think it was. So that was another one, just kind of a wacky, unique coaster that you look at some of the pictures, and it's like, wow, I think we can look at a lot of coasters and say, all right, well, I kind of know what that experience would be like, but this is something that I really can't picture how that would have been. So that I also added Hypersonic, which both of you mentioned. Any coaster that's too intense to stay open is just has me written all over it. So I definitely wish I could have gotten on that, but we've already talked about that. And then Roller Soaker at Hershey Park. A lot of people actually don't know about that ride. I was actually reminded of it recently. It's pretty much an inverted coaster. There's not really a layout. You're not really going too fast, but you essentially get to ride an inverted coaster over the midway and dump water on people, which to me, that sounds like a fun experience, especially during the summer. Even getting dumped on, that's cool. I saw a cool documentary short on YouTube recently, I think from the Hershey Addict channel, and that gave a lot of history about it that I didn't know about, kind of the design process and what it looked like when it was open. Did either of you go to Hershey when this was open?
I did not, but I wrote an article earlier this year about its predecessor, which was the Flying Super Saturator at Carowinds, and I talked to one of the designers for Setpoint, and to this day, it's one of less than 5 roller coasters I think that Setpoint ever designed or had involvement with. And I never got to ride Super Saturator. I never got to ride Roller Soaker. But learning more about the actual construction process and design process and how Setpoint kind of came on midway through the design and construction of Teardown Flyers and Islands of Adventure was super interesting. And that was the guys at Setpoint were former, I believe, Aero designers who had the roller coaster chops to do it. But for whatever reason, Setpoint did, after Roller Soaker, I think they only had one other roller coaster, and it wasn't one of the ones with the interactive water, the water bombs as they called them.
Yeah, so Andrew, I remember after reading your article about Flying Super Saturator, it made me really wish that I could. I don't even know if ride it, but at least watch it and watch riders dump water on people. So that I will maybe add that to my list. Either one of those really would, I think, have been very fun. I'm sort of. Maybe I'm not surprised they don't exist anymore. I'm sort of surprised that somebody hasn't tried to do something like that.
They would definitely be well received in today's I'm going to videotape you while I yell at you society. So
cool. Yeah, I think all of those sound like good choices. I think maybe now, as we wrap this up, maybe briefly talk about some roller coasters that maybe we are either don't miss, but maybe also we mentioned a couple rides that closed and went away but got replaced by something else that we love. I mean, I had mentioned Colossus at Magic Mountain. I miss it. It was fun, but Twisted Colossus is a much better ride. I think, Andrew, you briefly talked about with Dueling Dragons. Since you've ridden both Hagrid and Dueling Dragons, I know that's really hard to compare, but everything I've seen about Hagrid sounds like it's phenomenal. So could you even compare them if you tried?
You really,
obviously, Perfect World, we have both.
You really can't. Yeah, in a perfect world, you would have both. But Hagrid's I believe Universal uses the term story coaster, whereas Dueling Dragons Dragon Challenge, I'm only going to call it Dueling Dragons. I'm sorry. That was just two high intensity thrill rides for thrill junkies, and Hagrid's Magical Creatures Motorbike Adventure Through the Woods Through Hogwarts, or however long the name is. It is a very fun ride. It's well themed. There's some great animatronics. There's some great, terrain moments. There are a couple surprises that I'm not going to spoil because I'm sure most people haven't ridden it yet, or a large number of people have not ridden it. I don't think it's like you said, Eric. I think I would be very excited if they both existed in their own separate universe still, together but separate.
Yeah.
But, I don't think it's fair to compare the two of them. It's very tough. And I know, we talk on this podcast a lot that John's going to fire us for something we say. And I know he went to Dueling Dragons after they announced it was going to close, and he waited through the rain so he could get his first rides. And he's still going to hold a vendetta, to Universal. If anybody's from Universal is listening, it's not a serious vendetta, so please don't take it as such. But, yeah, it is two entirely different rides, and Hagrid is a ride that appeals more to more of a family dynamic. I think it's got a lower height requirement than the 54 inches of Dueling Dragons. So it's a coaster that families can ride together. Still has a lot of thrilling moments. It's got a vertical spike. It's got all the bells and whistles of a new coaster. I think it's got the most launches of any coaster out there now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I wish they were both still in existence. And every time I look online and I see a picture somehow of the Dueling Dragons track in that junkyard in Central Florida, I kind of shed a tear on the inside.
Yeah, I think the best outcome of that would have been Dueling Dragons move somewhere and let Hagrid's also be built is sadly not happening. But Andrew, are there any coasters that got removed that you don't miss, or your way that you think the replacement made losing them worth it?
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead. It's not removed yet, but it is officially closed according to Disney. The twin spinning wild mice. Primeval Whirl at Disney's Animal Kingdom. Disney's Animal Kingdom, specifically the Dino Land USA area, is an area to me that doesn't feel like it belongs in a Disney park. Obviously, it's got the Triceratops spin, the spinning ride. It's got some midway games, but it's designed like it. Not to say it looks like a Six Flags, but it's down to the parking lot markers and parking pavement. That's kind of what it's designed to look at. I'm not going to miss Primeval Whirl. Hopefully with whatever Disney decides to replace that with, be it 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years along the line, because the way Disney builds things, that's going to be when it's fixed or changed. Replaced. Yeah. That's the word I'm looking for. I'm sure it'll be great, but yeah, those two coasters can go. A coaster that another coaster I might be the only person in America who might have ridden it, who still thinks about it, is Hydro Fighter 2, which was at Wet n Wild Emerald Point in Greensboro, North Carolina. This is it. It was a.
You're making a real deep cut here.
Oh, it is a deep cut, and I mean I haven't been back to this water park in probably 10, 15 years, but it was a coaster. It was similar to the Roller Soaker, but it didn't have the interactive water. So it was built around the same time that. Actually, I take that back. It was built after Flying Super Saturator at Carowinds opened. So there was a better ride, like an hour and a half down the road, that did more things. And it lasted all of a year and a half at Wet n Wild Emerald Point, and then was standing but not operating for a while. Again, haven't been back. I'm sure they replaced it with some sort of actual water slide, because, it's a water park. But Yeah, I'm not going to miss that. And then two other ones I'm not going to miss. Stinger at Dorney Park. It's fine. It's a boomerang. It's an inverted boomerang. Okay.
Yeah, I think I do like the inverted boomerangs more than the sit down ones, but those are rides that will never feel bad having them leave. These days, if they are being replaced, they're probably getting replaced by something better. Like when Knott's had lost theirs, and Hang Time fit nicely in basically the same footprint. It was like, that is, Hang Time is not like the world's best roller coaster or the breaking records, but it is so much more fun than the boomerang.
You mean to tell me a Gerstlauer Eurofighter is a better ride than a Vekoma boomerang? I learn something new every day, man. This is ridiculous.
I'm sure there's somebody out there that does disagree with that.
And then the last one I want to talk about is one that is... It is definitely, its replacement was addition by subtraction. I'm, of course, talking about Firehawk at Kings Island, which the Giga Coaster Orion now sits on the plot of land that Firehawk used to occupy. I have one of these Vekoma flying coasters in my home park at Carowinds, and the one at Carowinds was the prototype. It was Stealth at Great America. Then it was Borg. Now it's Nighthawk. I don't enjoy these rides. I find them to be very rough. I find them to be, it doesn't matter.
Uncomfortable loading position.
Loading position's bad. I don't care how the coaster is situated in the park. When you go up the lift hill, you're staring straight into the sun.
Yep. With the vest crushing your chest.
Exactly.
Was my experience.
It's I'm glad that one exists at Carowinds, and I think still exists at Six Flags America. I believe those are the only two of that model still left. If we could go ahead and just make those Gen 1 flying coasters completely extinct, it would not be a bad day for me at all. So we're and now that I'm done, talking angrily about coasters that are gone, Shane, do you have any coasters you don't miss?
Yeah, what manufacturer would you like to rip on, Shane?
Oh, well, gladly, Aero. Any Aero coaster, just besides X2.
Any Aero, specifically Aero loopers, right?
Yeah, Aero loopers.
Because Andrew will get mad if you say Carolina Gold Rusher.
Oh no, nothing like that. Actually, I don't know. The mine train at Magic Mountain was pretty awful, but
that's that's much older.
Yes. Okay, so mainly the loopers, or the whatever corkscrews are pretty bad too. I've only ridden a few of them, so I can't rip on them too much. But the ones that I've enjoyed, the ones that I've ridden, I have not enjoyed. Also, I was going to say Green Lantern at Magic Mountain, just because there's a better model out there, similar to a lot of the wooden coasters that got upgraded to RMC. I mean, it's a little different with Green Lantern because nobody seemed to like it. But I just think that that's one that nobody's really going to miss. And, people at Laurent, good luck. Have fun with that up there. We will not be missing it here in the U.S., I don't think.
I think those are all fair choices. I would say my experience with Aero Loopers is actually I don't hate them that much. I would be sad. Certainly, I mean, there's a couple that I think most of us who've been on them agree are good. Tennessee Tornado and Loch Ness Monster, I think, are both very good rides. Viper at Six Flags Magic Mountain is generally pretty rough. I have found that there's certain if you sit in like the front row, I find it actually not too painful, and I like it. So I think, but that's one that I think I don't want to see go, mostly for historic and because I think it looks so good where it is in the park. But generally, yeah, if my home park, California's Great America, got rid of Demon, or really if Six Flags Great America got rid of Demon and we replaced them with something newer, I think none of us would complain too much about that. Well, with that, thank you everyone for listening. Thank you, Shane. Thank you, Andrew, for joining us today. As always, you can find us on social media. We are at Coaster101. Tell us what your favorite Defunct coasters or least favorite Defunct coasters were. You can also send any feedback, any questions, whatever, to podcast@coaster101.com. Thank you to Justin Mayberry and JM Music Design, and we will be back next week.